Hi, my name's Lisa and I'm the course leader of Criminology here at New College. Hopefully this short video gives you an idea of the sorts of things that we would discuss in the Criminology classroom. One of the topics that we look at is called Explain the Social Construction of Criminality. And for this section we look at the idea that the definition of crime differs between countries and over time and in certain situations as well. I'll explain what I mean further. Let's look at era. Over time, morals and values, they change, public concerns change, and so therefore the definition of crime has to change with that. Sometimes you need to look at the circumstances in which a crime happens to define whether that behaviour is actually criminal. For example, using your mobile phone. That's not illegal, but if you do it whilst you're driving and you're not using a hands-free kit, it is illegal. Sometimes you need to look at the place, the country where you are. Certain behaviours might be criminal in one country but decriminalised in another. And finally, culture. Culture encompasses many things such as religion, social norms and customs of that society, and those things heavily impact the definition of crime. On this slide I'm going to look at how punishments can change between countries. In 1965 the death penalty was abolished in the UK. You also might find it interesting to know that the average life sentence actually served in prison for murder is an average 16.5 years. That's really different if we go over to another Western society such as the United States of America, where I'm sure you're not surprised to know that some states still practice the death penalty. Not only that, in some states, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, the law still states that somebody could be sentenced to death through electrocution, the electric chair. That's something that just seems so alien to us. But look at this guy's face. This guy is Nicholas Sutton. February of this year, he was sentenced to death. He was electrocuted in Tennessee. Because quite interestingly, the law in Tennessee says that death row inmates can actually choose how they want to die. The majority will choose lethal injection, but he was the 7th inmate since 2018 to choose the electric chair. Now what I want you to just really focus on here is the fact that we've got the same criminal behaviour, murder and a murder here, but there's really different outcomes. This picture you might recognise, this is Stephen Lawrence, this is Dobson and Norris. They murdered him in a racially motivated attack. Now they were juveniles at the time, so their sentence reflects that, but even so, 15 years and 14 years for a racially motivated murder. Nicholas Sutton wasn't a nice man either. He committed 2 murders as well, but the outcome is really different for the defendants. These people get to walk free, potentially rehabilitated after 15 years. This guy's dead. If you were here now in the classroom, what I'd be getting you to think about is your own views about the death penalty and how we should punish murder. Do you think it's inhumane? Do you think it's unethical? Or you might have your certain views and you think it's just. Maybe at home you can have a think about this. On this slide we're going to look at how you can have the same behaviour, but in one country it's punishable by death and in another country it's protected. The Equality Act 2010 outlines a number of protected characteristics, one of which is sexual preference or sexual orientation. In the UK, we have a type of crime we call a hate crime. And if you were to discriminate against somebody because of one of these protected characteristics, it's a hate crime. And the judge is likely to view you a lot harsher than somebody else who did the same sort of crime, but they chose their victim based on other reasons. It's aggravating as a factor. It might surprise you to know that there's 5 countries that still practice the death penalty in relation to homosexual behaviours. In another 73 countries, homosexual behaviours are punishable with a prison sentence. You can't get much different than that, can you? Just an example here to show you, in 2014, you've got a Saudi Arabian man who's sentenced to 3 years in prison and 450 lashes for promoting and practising homosexuality. Essentially, he used his social media account on Twitter to try and arrange dates with other men. You guys would just take it for granted that you could use your social media account and you have the freedom to update your profile picture to pretty much what you want. A same-sex couple wouldn't think twice about updating their profile picture of both of them together. You can't get much different. On this slide, I want to look at how there's other definitions of crime that are not universal. Let's look at the idea of jaywalking. That's a term that we wouldn't use in the UK. Jaywalking is not a crime. But in countries such as the United States of America and Australia, they have jaywalking laws. Jaywalking is the process of somebody walking into the road or crossing the road without using a pedestrian crossing. In the UK, we have the Highway Code, and we allow pedestrians to make their judgment about whether the road is safe. You wouldn't think twice about looking left and looking right and making a decision about whether you're going to cross the road. But in America, it could land you a hefty fine. Let's look at the idea of bigamy. Bigamy is being married to more than one person legally. In the UK, it's illegal. It could land you 7 years in prison. We very much focus on a committed relationship involving two people, don't we? Whether that be a man and a man, a woman and a woman, a man and a woman, but to be in a committed relationship means two people. That's because of the social norms and values we've been exposed to. But not all countries are like that. Most Western countries do not support bigamy and see it as a criminal offence. But in some countries such as Iran and Saudi Arabia, it's common practice. It's a social expectation. It's normal for them. And they would have their own reasons as to why they believe that that's appropriate. On the next slide, we're going to have a look at how the coronavirus pandemic has impacted the definition of crime. What you could do at home is get a pen and paper and write down any examples you can think of how the definition of crime has changed since the coronavirus pandemic started. Hopefully you've got some ideas down. The coronavirus pandemic has impacted us all in many ways. It's impacted me as a teacher. Now I have to teach in a mask and I have to stand behind a perspex screen. But one way it's affected us all is the definition of crime. Before the Coronavirus Act 2020 was introduced, there were certain behaviours that were not criminal but now are. Not wearing a mask in a shop. Before the coronavirus pandemic, if you walked into a shop and somebody was wearing a mask, you'd be looking at them and you'd notice it and you'd be thinking, have you had surgery? Why are you wearing a mask? Now it's the complete opposite. If you walk past somebody who isn't wearing a mask, you want to hope that they're exempt and we're socially judging them. Mixing households. Gone are the time when you can just go round to your friend's house, go and visit your parents without having to think about whether you're mixing different households. Meeting your friends. These are all examples of criminal behaviour now, but 12 months ago, before the pandemic, we didn't consider these things as criminal behaviour. This is now a social norm, isn't it? When you walk into a supermarket, you expect to go up to the cashier and you expect to see them wearing a visor or a mask. This is a new social norm, and social norms and the definition of crime are very much linked because the social norms and the expectations of society feed into what we think should be criminalised and what should be decriminalised. Hopefully this short video has given you an idea of and sort of taster of what we look at in the criminology classrooms, and I hope to see you soon.